And hey everyone, let me share my screen. And there we go. Cool. Okay, this is the first time I've shared my screen. So hey everyone, thanks for joining us for our coach chat about grow your program with Nintendo games. I already see people, typing in chat, so feel free to type in and introduce yourself. You have the QA section for your questions. We already had a bunch pre-submitted. If one hits similar to one you had, you can upvote it or downvote it. So I think you just take away. So we'll get started in about 30 seconds while I get everything situated. This is being recorded, but once we go to the networking side, we will not be recorded anymore. So once we bump to that piece. So if you have any chat you want to save at that point, or you want to take notes then. But all of this will be recorded. We'll upload it to YouTube. It'll stay here on Rich Emotion Guild as well, where you can look back at any links that were shared. And at the end, I also share the presentation with all the links. All right, let's get started. So we are joined today by Alyssa Beck. If you have been with PlayVS for the past couple years, you've probably heard Alyssa's name. She frequently is on with us for these coach chats. I'm going to read a little intro, and then we'll be taking turns talking. I will talk about Splatoon. She'll be talking about Smash, and we will address your questions at the end. And then we will do a short little breakout. So let's get started. So Alyssa is a math teacher and esports coach at Gilbert High School, located in Gilbert, Arizona. She's been teaching for about 6 years and has been part of the esports program as a coach for 3. Alyssa is passionate about teaching and gaming and believes that esports is an opportunity her students cannot miss out on. For this reason, Alyssa is always looking for ways to help other coaches and improve the high school esports experience. So thank you, Alyssa, for joining us. And I will move on. Oh, maybe. So we got that. Delayed. My computer is struggling. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So we'll go over basics. Oh my goodness, I give up. Okay, I'll just do it. We're gonna go over basics and then we'll do a little more detailed breakdown of the games. If you're wanting more information, the next few coach chats will be more specific for Smash, and then more specifics for Splatoon 2. So this is more of an overview. So here we go. Maybe. I'm going to take my camera off. Let's see if that helps. Oh no, circle of death. Lord have mercy. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Melanie.
Okay. I don't know what's going on, but I got the beautiful rainbow wheel going.
I can try sharing my screen.
Yes, I'm going to try to leave.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. Ooh.
Okay. All right, can you guys see my screen? Just making sure I did it correctly. I think you guys can. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Smash the most. I'm most familiar with that one. I have been doing Smash in my program since I started my program now this is my 3rd year. It wasn't with PlayVS at the time. We kind of just ran our own tournaments at the school. And now that PlayVS has it, I'm definitely having a bunch of teams enroll this season. I also did Smash with PlayVS in the spring, which is the first time they offered it. And so definitely have some experience in that spring season. So you guys can't see the screen? Oh, okay. Now you can. Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Just making sure. Okay, so Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is a fighting type game. If you haven't seen it played before, it's very similar to the style of games like Mortal Kombat, where you're doing 1v1 fighting matches. There are other modes, but what we're focusing on in competition is 1v1 fighting matches. It is 3 sets of 3 games. So each player on the team plays 3 games. And it is in a one-on-one format. You do play all 3 of the games. You don't have like the first 2 people play and then they win and the third person doesn't play. No, all 3 players do actually play. So to win a match, a player must knock their opponent out of the ring using specific abilities, grit, and sometimes button smashing. This will take place on Wednesdays at whatever time is scheduled for your state. I know in Arizona it's at 4 p.m. And then Splatoon 2 is the other game we're going to hit today. It is 4v4 fighting matches, and you play 5 sets of games, and you do play all 5, and you have 4 players on the team at the same time. It takes place on Tuesday during your local time. To win, teams of 4 Inklings compete to cover the level with the most ink. That one is new this season, so I haven't played it in the past. I'm not adding it to my program this season, which is why Melanie will talk the most about Splatoon 2. So one of the things you need for both games is a Nintendo Switch. So what you'll do is you'll have accounts for each player. Players can log into the game with their user account, and they'll need a Nintendo Switch Online membership. You can do family accounts, which is up to 8 accounts for less than $40 a year. I would highly consider getting the DLC packs if you are planning to have a school device, because you're going to have players who don't play just the generic set of characters, they play the DLC, and in order to make it fair for both teams, you should consider buying the DLC packs. And so I've gotten those for my school Switches. You can also have students bring their own Switch, but that's going to be up to you, their parents, and also your IT department. So definitely make sure you check with all parties before you have them bring their own Switch. I have most of my students bring their own controllers, and I have some for backup at the school. But I would highly recommend getting their own controller. They're going to be more comfortable for the player to use anyways. And yeah, DLC is not really necessary for Splatoon. It's mostly for Super Smash Bros. That I would say it's necessary for. And it's not necessarily required, but I would highly recommend it if you do have to use school switches. You will also want to purchase an Ethernet adapter or have a wireless connection. As someone who has experience using both a wired connection with an Ethernet adapter and a Wi-Fi connection, there is a huge difference between using Nintendo servers over Wi-Fi and using Nintendo servers over the wired connection. So if you can, I would highly recommend getting that Ethernet adapter. You will need a dock for the Switch in order to be able to use the Ethernet adapter. And so if you plan to use an Ethernet adapter, I do not believe you can use the Switch Lite because I don't think they can connect to a dock at all. Yep. So device consistency, players use the same device each time they play. So some strategies for player recruitment, you can do school announcements, print flyers, and hang them around the school. You can do a recruitment or fundraising tournament. I know for my school, I kind of have to have a program before I can start doing fundraising because of how club funds work. But you could do just a fun 1v1 tournament where they just play and somebody wins like a candy bar or something like that. You don't have to do just a tournament where you charge a fee. You can also use player word of mouth. I started with probably 6 players interested in Smash Ultimate, and I'm pretty sure I have over 20 trying out this week. So it's really grown, especially by that word of mouth. There's a big Smash community in Arizona, and so a lot of high school students tend to be a part of that. And so they have realized that high schools are actually doing a Smash tournament, and so they've really gained interest in playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You can also use Discord and social media posts if your school does have social media. Okay, so more about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So some of the things with the rulebook and match days, all games must be played regardless of outcome of first 2 games. An example is player 1 is up 2-0. The remaining 1 game must be played as well before the set is considered complete. So you don't just stop at the 2 wins. There is a substitution window, so we are allowed to have substitutes this season for Smash, which is different from the spring. Just make sure you actually sub before the match starts. You have 30 minutes to join the lobby, similar to the other titles that they have, and teams can communicate via the PlayVS Discord. If Discord is not available for your school, since some schools don't allow the use of Discord, you may need to decide alternative comms. Like one of the examples I have is I had one school use a Google Doc, and so I shared the Google Doc with my team, and they joined on the Google Doc, and that's how we could do the picks and bans. Some other strategies I've heard from other coaches is that they have connected on Google Hangouts, and so they were able to join that way and communicate, which is probably easier than a Google Doc if you do have access to multiple devices. I would probably recommend that if Discord's not an option for you. Some general rules. It pretty much follows the tournament structure of other tournaments that you may have been a part of for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But if you have not participated in any tournaments before, here's some details. What the home team will do is create the private match. And so you'll need to share the code and password for it to your opponent so they can actually join. The game style is stock. Stocks are 3. Time limit 8 minutes. And then you have all of these options turned off. How the match format works is you have Team A player versus Team B player 1, and so forth. And so that's how the sets work. Here are some resources for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Melanie, do you want to link any of these in chat?
Yeah, can you hear me? Because last time
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Yeah, instead of linking them in chat, I'm going to send out this presentation with all the links in an email, probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll send this out with all the links because it'll be a lot by the end of the chat.
Yeah.
And then we also got a question about why we play all games, and I just wanted to address that. That is we're changing from best of to sets of, and that's a lot to do with tiebreakers. So if there is a tiebreaker. And so if you have more questions about that, we are having a coach orientation tomorrow where we'll look a little more into those details. So we focus more on Nintendo. Additionally, we added to our rule books that you should have an Ethernet adapter for that gameplay. Obviously, we can't go to your classrooms and schools and check, but that is just so that everybody has a good connection and a good experience. So don't sweat if you don't have one. It's just so encouraged that it is now in the rule books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of professional tournaments actually require it as well. Okay, one of the things I wanted to mention about Smash Ultimate before we move on to Splatoon is you will have a pick and ban phase for stages when it comes to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So I highly recommend reading through that section of the rulebook so that you and your students know what maps are allowed and what maps aren't allowed. That's probably one of the things you need the most practice with if you're new to running Smash tournaments is the pick and ban phase and understanding which maps are allowed and when. So definitely read through that section of the rulebook. And if you have more questions on that, reach out to PlayVS support and ask them.
Awesome. Well, thank you for covering, Alyssa. I appreciate that. I just switched computers completely, so hopefully this won't happen again. So Splatoon 2, go ahead. So the game objectives for Splatoon 2, it's pretty fun. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. So you're this little inkling. It's a squid kid called an inkling. You have all this gear, and your goal is just to cover your team's map in this like ink that really looks like paint. So you have your match creation, you have your map selection, and really you just play by like slinging this ink all over the place and then splatting your competitors. So it's really fun to just kind of go out and go crazy. So it's my new favorite game. So, and then make sure that you report your results. You will need 4 online memberships for those players. So make sure that you're checking into that. A lot of coaches recommend looking into that family plan if you're providing those online memberships. And then the kids level up by playing, so have them kind of play to get that better gear. Oh, you can go ahead. I was trying to click on. A few rulebook match day information. So we now added a substitution window to our rulebook, so you know exactly when you can sub. So you'll have prior to the match starts. So if you know a kid's going to be out, you can sub then, or in between games. And like what Alyssa said, please make sure that they're updated on the PlayVS roster before the new game starts. If you're able to communicate in real time with that coach, then please give them a heads up that you are substituting so that they know that there is a sub coming. You have 30 minutes to join the lobby. If you don't join within that 30 minutes, the other team has the right to request a forfeit for you. If for some reason you're one of those teams that tends to run late because you may get out later, it's just not as functional to get your team there on time, you can request that you play later, but you would have to do that every week to that opponent. And so just make sure you're reaching out. Again, we'll go into more details tomorrow if you're able to come to that orientation. So you'll need to accept friend requests to join, and then really communicate through the PlayVS Discord or alternative, like what Alyssa said. A lot of it is very similar to how Smash is created. And then you have your home team create the private match following the rules in the rulebook and game day protocol. And then you have some game modes with map selection. I am not as experienced on the map selection part, but it's pretty spelled out in our rules and game day protocol. Recommend going to preseason for this reason, just so that you all get some experience with that before the actual matches start, the regular season matches. And then make sure you have a lobby leader that is able to select the map. All right, you can go ahead and go on. So here's some Splatoon resources. Like I said, we have the game day protocol, very detailed. We've changed how we've done our rulebook. So we have an overall high school competition rulebook that has rules for all of our games. And then we have a game-specific rulebook for each game. So check out both of those for Splatoon 2. Highly recommend checking out that coach handbook if you're brand new, and our coach chat about previous games. Not as helpful for Splatoon 2 because we really haven't done as much. And then Nintendo game details. That's just going to be a link to tell you more about the game from Nintendo's website. So if you're trying to just understand the game as a whole, the coach handbook will go over more details like how many switches do you need, which is 4. Unlike with Smash, you can kind of pull off doing one at a time. You can't do that with Splatoon. So just keep that in your mind as you're signing up for Splatoon. And then you're going to have those 4 online accounts. So just being very clear on those as well. Okay, you can go ahead. I didn't change it to your email. Sorry, this is Robbie's. So my bad. So you don't need to email Robbie about that, although he might be able to answer your Smash questions. We will. Thank you, Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. We'll go through the questions. There's a lot. I think we kind of answered quite a few. So we'll just do like a question answer style. Alyssa, you can kind of stop sharing your screen. I think we don't need all that up. So I'll read the questions, and then Alyssa, you and I can kind of go through and answering them based off of our best ability. And then people voted for them. So I will look at that. Okay, so for players who play the games casually turning to competitive, what do you think is some of the best methods to practice the mechanics and grow better with the game and team?
Yeah, so definitely for Smash Ultimate, I would say that telling them to essentially set it up as a tournament. So turning off all the items, turning off all the settings you're supposed to in order to play. Because most likely at home, they leave the items on, they just kind of play for fun. And it's a whole different experience when you're not playing with the items. I would also encourage them to get familiar with the maps that are allowed and have them only play on those maps, not one of the other ones. It's good to have downtime where they can play with the items, but I really think that encouraging them to follow the settings of the tournament is important, especially for practice.
Yeah, and similar with Splatoon, I just found a setting where you can go and like practice like the actual like inking and different parts of that. It's like to the side. I don't know enough about the match creation, but there's a way to like go and practice, and then you can also do custom matches. I would do just a lot with a lot of our games too. It's just like getting out, playing, talking about it, and then watching some experts. Definitely looking at YouTube. I don't know if Smash has specific YouTubers and gamers that Alyssa, your team watches, but I can look that up for Splatoon and add that to the email for us.
Yeah. A lot of my players go to local events and watch local tournaments that are happening. There was another suggestion I was going to say for Smash. What you can do is have your players practice a specific ability against each other. Like one of the things my players was practicing when they first joined, like last year, they were practicing their shield. And they would just have somebody like attack them and try to get their shield at the right spot. Because, in casual, they're not really using their shield very often, but in competitive, it actually makes a difference. And so that was a big help as well.
Yeah. Also, we will have a coach chat next week about that. So Kyle McGoffin will be coming to chat more details about Smash. So I'm going to move us on. That was a great question, but that would be a great coach chat to go into. What is the typical number of esports athletes to start with a newly formed esports team?
So for talking for Smash, I would say 3. That's going to be the minimum. We played against a school that had enrolled 3, but only 1 played, and it really wasn't a fun experience for either teams because essentially that 1 player is just losing the whole way through the season, even though they're playing and maybe winning their own set. It just wasn't fun for either team because not all my players could play, and only the 1 person was earning points.
Yeah, for Splatoon, it's 4. You're required to have 4. And then if you're looking into the others, they range from like 3 to 5. Typically, Madden and FIFA are solos, so you'd only have 1 player. Muted myself, sorry. What is the best way to explain the game to an unfamiliar and or skeptical administrator? They didn't say which game. I'm going to assume Smash.
For Smash, I'd say it is a friendly, cartoony Mortal Kombat. That's how someone described it to me today. a teacher that I work with who's not familiar with esports, and so I can kind of just like, oh, that makes sense. And I think that more people would be familiar with that type of game.
Yeah, and maybe this is from originally coming from the South, but to me, describing Splatoon 2 is like the virtual version of paintball guns. That's probably not the best way to explain it, but that's what I think of. And so you just get to kind of sling the paint everywhere. Okay, how can a student sign up for this if it's just, oh, sorry, misread. How can a school sign up for this if just one student wants to play?
Is that for Smash, you think?
I think so. But Splatoon, you can't play. You have to have 4
Yeah.
players.
Are they able to do scrimmages, Melanie? No? Okay. I honestly would avoid signing up with one player if it was me in my school. I feel like with Smash, you'll get more interest than just one player, but maybe it would be better for them to just start off kind of playing and doing their own thing in your esports lab, and then maybe they'll get more of their friends interested as the season goes along, and then they can join in the spring.
Yeah, it's really not recommended. I think, like what Alyssa said, you should work on building up and getting kids hyped up and excited versus pushing it and then they don't have a good experience. The whole goal is for them to have fun and have experience. Okay. Do the students have to already own the games and have a Nintendo online subscription, or will those be given to them during the season, kind of like Rocket League in the previous seasons? PlayVS will not provide those, so those need to be either provided by the school or the students themselves. Alyssa, I don't know if you have an alternative option for that, but that's the PlayVS answer.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Some people are doing the family plan. And so, like for Splatoon 2, they just sign up all 4 Switches on a school account, and then it's cheaper than doing, one individual account per Switch.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Is it possible for students to compete solo in Smash Ultimate?
I'd say no based off of the previous response.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a fun experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think technically the rules say you have to have 3 players. So if you're following the rule books, please do 3 players. And then going back to Alyssa's story, it's just no fun for the other 2 players. They get left out for a week. So yeah. What setup would you recommend for competing? I don't know if that's for Smash or Splatoon. And I don't know what they mean by setup.
Yeah, it's really just the Switch, dock, controllers. You could get, a lot of my students use the GameCube controllers, so we have GameCube adapters, and that's what we use for Smash. But really all you need is a monitor and the Switch setup. Yeah.
So we just have the Switch and then to the monitor, and then I am cheap, so I don't have a Joy-Con or anything. I just use what came with my Switch. Students are often more about a game than the school club advisor. What are some coaching tips and resources to help structure practice time? So I'm going to make another plug that we will have 2 sessions about practicing, one next week about Smash, and then one the following, after Labor Day, so 2 weeks from then, about Splatoon. But I will let Alyssa answer these.
So what I do is I really just help my students with organizing and getting their team set up and structuring everything. So like this week we have tryouts, and no matter how much I play these games or try to learn these games, my kids are always going to know more than me. Like my team captain for League of Legends is level 400. There's no way I'll ever get to that point in my life. But you can still provide them with that structure. you're their leader, and you can think of yourself more as a manager for that game. If you're not comfortable with giving them specific tips about their gameplay, you can be a manager and you can give them the resources they need to be successful, and give them strategies like reflection and goal setting and those sort of things to really help them be successful instead.
Awesome. Yeah, we get that question pretty much about every game title that we run, and it's just lean on to your students, what their knowledge, and then create team captains to help with that. And then really work on having a practice schedule where you can kind of just oversee, listen, kind of learn the vocabulary, and then guide them. But the kids will pretty much, work on their own. A lot of VOD review, just learning from that and learning from professionals is what we've typically heard in the past couple of years. All right, so tips for convincing your school to create an esports lab / computer lab.
I'm not sure I'm the best person to talk to for this, because my athletic director set it all up and came to me for it and found me and added me to the program because I was really interested in doing it. But I would just use other schools as a model and say, this school is having so much enrollment. And I know enrollment for us is a big thing nowadays, especially at least in my district. We're always competing with local schools to get our enrollment up. And, I've grown from my small group of players to, 30 students fighting for a spot on the team, and just show them what other schools have done and how it's grown. And hopefully they'll be interested in maybe investing in it.
Yeah, we talked about that the past couple of weeks in our coach chat. So I'm going to put a link for our playlist. Check out the Getting Your Space Ready. One talks about downloading and kind of winning over your IT. And then the other one is about kids bringing in their consoles and other devices. So it was very helpful for me to hear what the other super coaches do as well. So that is in there. And then also, I see people in the chat saying use your other labs, maybe make, convert that. But that's really hard when you're trying to do the consoles and winning people over to support the consoles. There's some ways to do that. We've heard people say they put a time limit in the room. They have a special room that those consoles can be in. And then, maybe have a specific area or, classroom that you can use for that. And then, looking into some alternatives. We list a few in the other ones. I'll try to grab them for you. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but that's the few that I've heard over and over again, specifically for consoles. And then letting the kids bring their own devices also helps sometimes. Okay, so they want more details about subs and member setup. I'm assuming by member setup, they were asking about online. We addressed subs a little bit, but just to reiterate, subs, you'll be able to do prior to matches or in between. You do need them as an active player on the roster. You just sub them in. They will have to be enrolled into the season as well. You can't enroll them necessarily later. If you do, you need to reach out to support. Alyssa, do you have anything to add to that one?
I don't think so. I would say, just if this is your first season doing Smash, be patient the first couple weeks with getting things set up. Hopefully your opponent is patient as well. It's going to take, a little bit of time for you and your students to get used to the process. But once you have it down, you'll be good. So just be patient those first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's also why I always encourage preseason. It's a great opportunity to kind of test all that out. Okay, I'm going to put the Nintendo Switch online. And it was pretty easy. If I can do it, you can do it. It was just view membership. And then it was highly recommended that coaches look into that family one because it ends up being cheaper. Then you kind of have control over those accounts, and then you can get them set up. I can share my screen. Maybe. Still learning. Okay. Here we go. So yeah, so I just went to the link that I provided, and it's view membership, and then you have different options, and then you can scroll down and do the family plan. And I believe it's up to 8 accounts for that $35 for a year. So it's much cheaper than the $20 per player. So if you're having to kind of help get those memberships for your players, you are allowed on the PlayVS end to have players use their personal account versus a school account. It really depends on how much control the school wants over those accounts and who's paying for it. So that's really more on your end. Check with your IT and administrators for those answers, unless you get to decide, and then you just decide which one you would rather do. Our request is just that if they use their personal account, please check that it's clean, read it out loud, make sure it's, phonetically read it to yourself, make sure it's clean. Does the family membership allow you to log in across multiple switches? Yes. Pretty cool, huh? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So great questions. Okay. So Smash is 1 versus 1 for each member, 3 rounds. I believe so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so how I do it, I use my fingers, right? And so I have like player A versus player A, and then they just kind of like rotate. So, makes it so everybody gets to play 3 times, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yep.
I feel like I get Madden and those two confused sometimes. Okay. How can someone set a league up in their school if they're just a student? For PlayVS, for Smash and Splatoon, it requires a coach. So we have some resources on our help center if you're a player and you are trying to get set up. Most of the programs that I've interviewed, it's usually a passionate student that gets the program started. So, do your research, figure out like why you should have it, and then check out some of our resources, and just reach out and try to convince your school. This one's pretty vague, but they said any restrictions. I don't know if that's somebody in the chat, if they want to add to that. But
I know I've had that question about Smash sometimes, like, are there character restrictions? And I don't believe there are. I think there's only map restrictions, and then you have to follow the tournament rules.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's all I've seen too. For Splatoon, I haven't seen any details about specific characters.
Melanie, for Smash, in the rules, it technically says like 1 switch per team. Is that correct for Smash? I think.
Oh.
Like it's a minimum.
Like you have to have at least 1 switch?
Yeah, I think something like that.
Right.
Because it works a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Some people are asking about the DLC in the chat and having to get it for every switch.
Yeah, so you are allowed. So we recommend on like the PlayVS end, like because it speeds it up, having 3 switches, 1 per player, and then all the players fit. However, we know that is not necessarily logistically possible. So all we ask is that if you are going to do 1 switch per team, that you reach out to the opponent coach prior to the match and let them know, because that's going to take a little bit longer to play, and you have to make sure that they have that time span to play it. Most coaches know that that's a thing, and honestly, a lot of them only have 1 switch as well. So you just need to communicate that, and then figure out that. I've also been told that if like you are doing 1 switch, if like one team only has 1 switch, like use 1 for your other team. So if like I have 1 and then the opponent has 3, like keep 1 arena and then just play all your matches in that 1 arena.
Yeah,
it's supposed to help.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did in the spring. In my like, just from my experience, it makes the games more engaging when the first person plays and then the second person plays after, because they go really quick, to be honest. Unless there's any problems with setup, the Smash games go really quick. So if you do, because we did one switch per team last semester. But I just wanted to ask that, since people were asking about the DLC, because they would, if they needed 3 switches, need to buy the DLC for all 3 switches. So just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, for Splatoon, you do need 4 separate switches and 4 separate accounts. But
Yep.
I don't think there's any DLC like type pack that you need to buy on top of that. So I could be wrong. Still new to Splatoon. Okay, so then a last question that was submitted. Can we compete using a Switch, or do we need a more robust setup? I think you've answered this already, but just to make sure.
I think the only thing they'd need to add is the Ethernet cable.
Yes. And that's
Everything
just to
else-
make sure it stays connected the whole time,
Yeah.
which I will find the link and put it in the chat. I've saved it because I just ordered mine and got it in. It's super easy to set up. I will say, if you are new and you don't know much about setting up Ethernet, I had to also get a Ethernet switch because I only had one Ethernet cable at the time. So like just check it with your IT and make sure they don't have things already on hand, and then get the Ethernet adapter. I just got it off Amazon. It was pretty easy to get.
Yeah, and if you can purchase it, I recommend buying the Nintendo brand because they do actually perform better. Obviously, the off brands will be better than a Wi-Fi one, but the Nintendo does have a better connection, that brand.
And I've heard that multiple times from multiple coaches. So yeah, somebody's saying you can get off-brand docks and Ethernet adapters, but just kind of be wary of like that might slow your connection down. So that is important to know. I'm trying to find the link. I do have my box nearby if anybody wants to see it. Before we end and go to the networking side, does anybody else have a question they would like to ask? I'll kind of go over, my end so that you all know. I will look over. It takes me about a day to get a list of who attended these, and then I will go through classic ClassNet or ClassTools.net type random name picker, pick out my names. You will have to be enrolled to either Smash or Splatoon to get the Smash bundle. I will probably, if you're not, and you're picked, I will probably contact you to see if you had planned on doing it before I just move on. And then we will see who wins. I'll probably post in the Discord and email everyone once I have the winners. So please be patient. It'll take me a couple days. And does it cost to register as a team? Yes, PlayVS has a cost. I don't have the cost breakdown. I highly recommend reaching out to your rep because depending on what you select, it costs different things. And I don't have an exact number for everyone. It also matters what state you're in. Some states are different, apparently. So did I lose connection? Oh, no, I don't know. Sorry, just reading through chat. So PlayVS does have a cost. It should say when you sign up, you should be having a rep. If you don't have a rep and you're not sure who you should talk to, one, you can reach out to support@playvs.com. We also have success@playvs.com, and that will get you to your rep as well. If you're a new school, you probably already scheduled a consultation to get set up. If you haven't, please do so. You can find those on our page, playversus.com/consultation. Those are all great ways to get connected with a PlayVS rep who can then help you with your pricing and get you on your way. It's usually around $64 a kit though, so be thinking about that. All right. Any other questions? I think, what's the cost to purchase? Okay, so I answered that one. Sweet. And then any other questions? That was a great question. And the person who asked, I can find your rep for you and get you connected so that you can get an exact quote. But you should, we use like the classic like quote invoice type structure, so you can get that figured out. Cool. All right, so thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to end the session and we'll go into networking. Again, networking will not be on the recording, so please be sure to take any notes if you have any important things that you want to share. We'll be on for about 20 to 30 minutes and then we'll shut it all down. The recording will be available on the RM Guild page, but also we'll get it uploaded to YouTube here in a little bit. Thank you, everyone. So also, if you're going to the networking, it'll like have a pause. You have to like accept to join, and then you have to click back into a circle. Learn that the hard way. Make sure you do that. All right, ending session, and I will see you in a few. If not, have a great evening. Thank you, Alyssa.